Lights on. Stream live. Bienvenidos to the morning.
Bum, 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 bum. Welcome back to Monkeys Mayhem. And this is my reaction where the hype is for you and a monster, but bigger than your expectation. Where in the land of the kaiju, Godzilla is king. And today we are talking about that same king. We're talking about Godzilla minus zero. So minus zero is obviously the sequel to minus one. And if you haven't seen minus one, it is a great movie. It is honest. I love Godzilla movies, dating back to 1954's original Godzilla. So, and you know, that was done by Toho, Subaranya, and everyone. And it just kept going with Toho. They followed it up with Godzilla Race again, Godzilla versus King Kong, and it just went on with on. And of course, we got to see the new Monster Verse where it was Godzilla versus King Kong and all Godzilla and King Kong team up. So, but Toho kind of decided it was going to come back to its own monster series and got with Godzilla again. And it created monster, Godzilla minus zero, minus one. And that was incredible. I gotta say it, incredible. Again, if you haven't seen it, it came up 2 years ago, and it was an incredible film. I mean, and it won American awards because it was such a great movie. Um, and that one minus one was you know it was actually the oh the 39th film of Godzilla in the Godzilla franchise. And again, if you count the 70s version, if you count Godzilla 1984, and if you count all the 90 versions, where again they're exceptionally great, you have to see them. But Toho kind of took a break, let the franchise go out to the American companies, and we got the Monsterverse. We got that horrible 1990s, which we did not talk about. But afterward, they came back with Godzilla on this one. And it was such a great success that it came back with Godzilla now minus zero. And why is it minus zero? Because this takes place in World War II. It was from after the onset of World War II, Japan is destroyed by, the bomb pollution and, the locations. And it, it was devastating. It was completely wiped out. And, they just signed a treaty. They had American forces there. So due to the radiation from not only from the bombs, the atomic bombs, but the United States was doing nuclear testing as well. So it actually radiated, and we know the story of Godzilla. It got radiated by atomic energy, radiation. He became huge. There's completely stories because they say that he was, like already a dinosaur and asleep in the crust of the earth. And that's why you see it in the monster birds. King Kong, Godzilla have got kind of their inner world. So if you want to tell that Godzilla will came back radiated, more powerful, more pissed off, and decided, I'm going to kick people's ass. So it was a very, very, very great movie. And Godzilla Minus Zero takes place 2 years after, so like 1949. And it basically tells the story of the Shikamichan family. If you don't know who they are, I'm not going to spoil it. But again, great people involved. And for the family butcher, they name Rinisoki Tamaki as Yachi Chikazawa or Chikatima, who was a former kamikaze pilot. And again, you have to see -1 to understand the plot. You know, his girlfriend, Hiroko Oki, played by Minami Hanabali. And it goes, I'm not going to go over everybody, but again, you have to see the whole movie. They did, and I'm so used to the suits, the people in the rubber suit, that it's different. It's CGI Godzilla. And they did have um costume elements to it. Didn't make the show, the movie much better. So you can imagine it takes place 2 years later, and it is incredible. So we got the trailer to Godzilla -0 just dropped, and I got to see it. Wow. It's this might be the most serious Godzilla movie I've seen in all of its collections. And what we're going to do, we're going to actually, we're going to go to the trailer. So let us see the trailer and then we'll talk about it.
If their operation fails, maybe we'll finally get to use it.
Abort third drop. Repeat. Abort third drop.
Now, that was an American bomber flying over. Yes, that poor pilot, he's been through so much. Oh my God. Godzilla looks so much bigger now. Oh, he's in the United States. Did he just walk behind the Statue of Liberty? So Godzilla is twice as large as the Statue of Liberty. So, oh my God, that is, my first reaction is this is what your typical market. This is not like the smash Godzilla movies we've seen. This feels like a horror movie because, they portray it so well. The Japanese took it so serious. They had to play for Godzilla for 7 years when he did the Godzilla dance. If you guys remember, he did the little crazy dance. And then he has a son and stuff like that. And it was, always played with the children. It was directed to children. I don't know. They got rid of the seriousness. Then in the 90s, well, 1985 or 84, they did Godzilla Revenge or Return of Godzilla. And in America, we called it Godzilla 1984. And it was another, incredible movie. They started bringing it to the seriousness. And then in the 9th series, I believe that is called the Heisei era. And I could be wrong. But they decided to make it more serious. Godzilla was kind of the villain again. They kind of mellow. They did a nice little storyline. Then during the late 90s, they kind of mixed it up a little. It kind of, how can I say, they, it started getting a little bit, not fancy, but a little bit outrageous. And then they did Godzilla Final War, which involved every monster they had, and it blew everything away. And the actors were great. The movie was kind of like Power Rangers meets Godzilla meets the anime movie, and it was fun. It was fun to watch. This one, just like in -0 really was like more of a horror movie. This one takes it to another level. Dark tones immediately. Human fear is front and clear. So you actually see it. There's less flash, there's more grounded, emotional stakes are real. It is and incredible. The trailer doesn't say, look, Godzilla is cool. You know, it's, it basically said you're not surviving. Help PC no. And if you could see, the United States is more involved in this time around. In Godzilla -1, they kind of said, nope, he's yours. Bye. Good luck. Now it's kind of like, I think there, you could see it like in the beginning shot where the bomber's flying over. That is an American bomber. And they're kind of like, I wonder, like, so let's see how this works out. And then, they're planning something, and then you see Godzilla in the city, like this, that, and the. So, yeah. The other thing that I noticed was in that trailer, Kachi is flying through a storm, and you can see like the blue energy, like that looks like Godzilla. And yeah, it's it's something must have happened, like it's like anti-gravity or something. He must have thrown like a town or something. OG, like that's basically it. You need been traumatized to the first time since Godzilla. And again, see minus one, you understand that. Yeah, the very successful. That was another thing. That Godzilla made me emotional because Godzilla movies don't make you emotional. They make you laugh. They make you like Rudy for him to destroy Moisty. And when he fights another monster, that's another thing. You kind of like, it's gonna make people that. It's gonna do what, you know. So you kind of like in that steady state, and wow, like this one, uh, it was emotional. But you actually see people. It's you don't see them die. You actually get a good of scenes that they're done. The flame comes by, the fire, people another. You see that. And it's not, it's not a playful one. You know, let's talk about how Godzilla looks, you know, because they made him more terrifying. He's got a bit more bulking shoulders. He's got more like the spikes in the back. He still looks like the cool classic Godzilla from 1954 in a way. His scale is massive. Like, he's not as big as the Monster version, but he's big enough, for what the 1954 version. You know. He's also slow. He's like, he's slow on stoppable movements. So it's not like we got and running around like we see in the Monster version. You know, he's the lizard. He's like, his weight carries him down. As you can see here from the fellas and stuff. Oh, but it's not like the one to rock. It's like, Godzilla versus Megalon. This is like, he's more of a force of nature than a creature. You know, is this Godzilla a hero in this movie? It's me more of the sad region. I think from the last movie, he was more, I would say even a film in the force of nature, who basically said, I'm pissed off and I'm just going to destroy what the hell is going on in this world. I'm going to just destroy. So that's, it's almost hard to pinpoint. You can look at him as the force of nature at the film because he is destroying killing people. And again, it is legit how you see it, he does stuff. So it's something to be seen, and could there be another monster involved? I think in the original, I'm trying to go back looking at trying to explain the memory regarding like the franchise. I know King Kong was like this first monster versus monster, but I don't believe it was actual kaiju. No, it was Angerus. Yeah, and then you think of think about the three-headed monster, and you know, in most of the movies, he's got less ring And in the remakes, like the original, I think it's the original 60s movies, and then the 70s, he is like kind of the main film with other monsters like Tiger and then Mecha Godzilla and all that. In the remakes of the 90s, it's used one center. Pride sees a bad guy, then it comes with that. So you have to see the Godzilla versus King Ghidorah 90s version to understand. Ah, so could there be another monster that creates that like floating city debris with the blue? You know, could be maybe it is King Ghidorah, but King Ghidorah's like an ingredients of code. So I did some research and I had to look up some of the movie stuff to explain it. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see on more trailers to come along. All right, key moments. The city destruction. Realistic scale. They outdid themselves. For CGI today, with AI today, you even seeing with me, I can YouTube videos. I'm trying to do some little side videos. AI is incredible. You don't need Hollywood much, and you can do a lot in your face. It's real, remember the name. So, but we're so hard to go into, they did miniatures, they did AI and CGI. The city destruction looks incredible, realistic. It is awesome. The watership sequence on the water planes, sequences like you saw Godzilla chasing that big plane. That I believe that was an American plane as well, American made or airport plane. I think it's a woman. I'm not too sure, but it's also realistic, just like in -1, where he's chasing the boat. Not generally fearing for this crew because it's like, then they get away. The ground perspective with people running in here. Godzilla movies, you look kind of close at the later versions. They're kind of like, hey, Red Godzilla, we're running. You know, here they actually, you can see, but they could be CGI, they could be AI, they could be, real actors. But honestly, they look like they would see it. I remember when I did my little dragon series where we dressed up as an elf, I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I was still in learning, and I could portray the fear of that. Like, wow. That, the fear that they have makes you kind of go really interesting. Also, is atomic gravity. It's powerful. And it's not like before Godzilla, when Godzilla movies, it's his dorsal fins would light up. And they would boom, shoot out the roof. Here they kind of like pop up. They get stronger, they get pop up. And then it's like it builds up like the energy and then zoom and it shoots it out. And that is another thing that caught me, like I was fortunate to see it in the theater. I got to see Godzilla -1 in the theater, and it was just the reaction from it all, the sounds of the theater, the boom and everything. That was incredible. That was something. So it is. That's a theater moment when you sit down and actually watch that. And here's where things get a little bit interesting because in most Godzilla movies, they don't do like the end of the war type thing. The only time they came close to that was in 1954's Godzilla, and they didn't really touch. They touched on it was years after, 10 years after the World War II. Here, this post-war Japan, right after the war. So you're talking about 2, 3 years later. That's a huge emotional rate. You got to see how they really lived back then. The theme there is you could see it as survival, because they are trying to rebuild the city from scratch. They're people traumatized. You get to see a lot of the film being remade, and Godzilla comes in You could say, here's a funny thing you could say Japan after the war was like, if you went from like 110 in like technology and like, I don't, like, I don't know if you would call it civilization, whereas like they were powerful. They went, after the war, they went to what? The they fully destroyed, their navy was gutted. They really didn't have much left. And then Godzilla -1 happened, and it took them down to like pass them because now they're more destroyed. Godzilla -0, you've just seen the pattern. And maybe being Godzilla's in New York City or passing Statue of Liberty means travel in the world. Oh, yeah, we'll have to see that. This feels like Godzilla isn't just destroying cities, he's representing something. Because when you see Godzilla, like he's this is the product of a creature that's been radiated, who's been, you know, it's kind of like I'm just generally pissed off and I don't know what's going on. And at this point, it's like humanity is at the black bottom. And now it's even going to go lower. It's a Godzilla. Anything that, and another thing that make it real. What will happen if this really is? So we don't know. Um, this is very different from like Hollywood monster verse version. The monster version is action spectacular, glorified, -0 and -1 emotional devastation. They really, this feels so close to the original Godzilla vibes. And honestly, that's exactly what we needed. Just like when you see remakes of movies like, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, you're kind of like, when you see the remakes, they're like, they flavored them a little, I think, So honestly, when you see Back to Basics, that is a human to me because now you just, yes, you're remaking it, but you're going back to that original theme. And that's, I don't think Hollywood's got to that level yet that they understand. And then I think they just did a movie, and oh my God, I can't remember, but they did a space movie, and it was, none of the crap that you see in Hollywood today, pushing political messages or narratives. It was just straight movie. Let's forget about the world. Let's enjoy the movie. So that's, I think that's what -0 is doing. You know, the other thing is the pros and cons. Honestly, I haven't really found anything. I think what looks amazing is that it's dark and it's grounded tone. It makes it real. Cinematic visuals. They don't only do it with special effects. It makes it see what's real. And then the serious storytelling. It's like damn, Godzilla. This is serious storytelling. And Godzilla feels dangerous. If you see -1, he's that, and he's like, okay, now more. I'm really gonna be more into it. Like I'm gonna destroy stuff. I'm gonna beat this stuff. You know, then it could. I think when you look at the possible concerns from the movie, this is what my concerns are. Might be too heavy for casual fans, if that makes sense. Like casual fans don't matter. So you the Monsterverse and see this movie and say, oh yeah, this is different. This is I'm gonna take your ass. You know, it's less monster action fodder, less fun monster battles. Like what you see in Kong and Godzilla. It's like then you could see like I'm expecting them to high five each other and do dances. That's how the monster bird meets. This isn't popcorn fun. This is my hit you in your chest if you sit down and watch this. You know, My predictions on this could be probably the best Godzilla movie Toho has ever made. Now notice I said Toho, not American movie theaters, not Goshensi movie studios like the Monsters. Toho. This leans very heavily into dramatic drama over action. This leans into more, you know, redefining the modern kaiju film. And I think that's the big thing. If they stick to this, they stick to the land, it's just going to be special. They don't waver, they don't treat shit like this, they just keep it going. I think it's going to be a big thing. My final verdict, just from the trailer alone, I love this. I'm giving this a play. 5 Godzilla flames out of 5 because the first one caught me off guard. -1. This is kind of that. So, all right, Nahum Crew, what do you think of the trailer? It's out there, it's on YouTube. You can see it. Are you hyped? Are you nervous? Are you ready to buy tickets for it? And let's be honest, or would you survive this version of Godzilla if it ever happened? Hit that follow, drop your thoughts in the chats. All them, let me know how I'm doing. Because without you, I'm not going to do this. I need you guys keep and go. So like, subscribe, and follow my channel. Stay chaotic, stay legendary, and this is Monica Mega. Bye.